Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Diversity. My name is Rhea. I am your host, and of course, I'm joined by my co-host. He is Dr. Joseph Nwoye. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ray.
And of course, I have trouble saying his last name, but that's okay, because over time, I'm sure it will roll off my tongue like it has always been there to begin with. Doctor, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your history, and what diversity means to you?
My name, as you said, is Joseph Nwoye. I was born in Nigeria. And as I was growing up, I had the opportunity to go to school where a lot of people from various parts of the world were sending their children. And within that time, I got to know that people are by nature good. I have friends of all groups. And from that point on, when I came to the United States, it was just easy for me, even though I wasn't thinking about it. But people would say, oh, these people like you. And nobody asked whether I like them. But naturally, I'm positive with people. So it wasn't a surprise to me. So as I grew up, I got to know people. I got to see people who are struggling for issues of equity and social justice. And from that point on, I developed the different mindset that there's evidence of discriminatory practices that are occurring, and some people do it with impunity. In fact, I had someone who came from Nigeria around the time I came, whose relative happened to be a minister. And once in a while, some people would make some jokes with him. I don't have very bad temper, so a lot of people didn't come across to me that way. So one day we came in front of the library. We were standing there. One person went to him and said, "Are you from Nigeria?" The guy said, "Yes, I'm from Nigeria." He said, "Is it true that you guys live in the cave?" I could not believe myself. My anger was uncontrollable. Then this guy, being a very calm person he was, and his name happened to be Joseph too, he said, "If you think we live on the trees and in the cave, when your president came to Nigeria, obviously he lived in the cave and on the tree with us." Then I turned to the guy and said, "Why could you talk to this guy, this stubborn and hopeless and untrained person?" Joseph was very cool and responded to him in a way that if he thinks, he will reflect on what he said and the response he got. From that time on, I realized the extent of diversity or issues of equity and social justice that is lacking big time. And the school happened to be about even 98% white. So once in a while, you see a black person, Dr. Larry Vogue. He was the one that had been doing things to change that course. Because oftentimes in summer, they flood the whole school with people who cannot even read at the fourth grade level and expect them to do well in. And these people will all be flunked out at the end of the 2 semesters because they can't even get to 1.0 and it requires 2.0 to be in school. They are flunked out. So Larry Vogue went to the high-level people and said, "Why can't you guys change this course? If you get these people and know that they are operating at a lower level than what you want in school, at the university, why don't you find a program to train?" It wasn't done. Then Dr. Vogue, who was very active in social justice-related issues, he asked the president if he could support his program. And he gave him quite a bit of money to start a program, which resulted in taking students who had been in rural school or suburban school, mostly white students, and put them in places like Philadelphia, like Pittsburgh. These are the places where you see a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of African-American people. And the first 2 days, what you hear from our students, that is the students who were graduating to become teachers, would be something along the line of, "Wow, why are they doing this?" And you see their face very frustrated, very angry, related. And then After the third day, at the time when our students had gotten to know those people, you hear, that's my kid. It's just unbelievable, the joy in the faces of these kids. Then our student teachers developed a good relationship with them. When I finished my doctorate, I went to a school they call West Liberty State University. That was in West Virginia. It's a very remote place. In fact, coming from Nigeria, I would say, is this US? That's a different story altogether. From there, to emulated the footsteps of Dr. Larry Vold, exemplary human being. I wish that we have more people like. I replicated the program. I would take our students from West Virginia to Pennsylvania, where Dr. Vold was having students in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. And through that process, our students were able to replicate the same thing. In fact, one of my students, exemplary students, who, because of the program, he said, Dr. Nwoye, you know what? I want to teach in rural area. And this kid went to teach in South Carolina, where he was teaching first grade students. And he would take their pictures, cover their eyes with the leaves of tree, and take their picture and say to me, these are my lovely students. And almost all of them are very poor. You can see it in their dressing, you can see it in the way they act. But my student was well prepared. So he was doing a great job. I dedicated this book to the guy. His name is Bruce Snell. And there's never a day I don't think of him. He's like my family. In fact, I wish we have more people like him when it comes to issue of race, because he understands. Now, when you ask me of diversity, I try to use something I read, I think, from European Journal, where they referenced someone who spoke about it. And I thought, this is best definition I've ever had. It's like having a party and then you invite people to come to your party and you ensure that you have Hispanic, you have African American, you have Asian, you have gender-related issues and all the sexual orientations in there. Now, when you come there, you can see them by taking a look around. You see the white, you see the black, you see the Asian, you see everyone. Now, when people begin to dance and having fun, you find out that somebody may be sitting down alone somewhere. Then when you look, you find out that person perhaps doesn't have friends or doesn't have people who are like him, who can love so much. He says, why black people are sitting in the cafeteria alone? If you're white and you have your friends, you go to wherever you go, you find out that you stay with people you like, people that are. Why is it that when black people do it, it's a different story? It shouldn't. That's my definition, because you can see diversity within. You don't need to be told. Then if you go deeper, inclusion, which I think is very important. Inclusion is when people start dancing, then you see the people who are dancing as included. They're having joy, grooving and happy. Then the other people who may sit on the corner, they don't have friends, so they're not grooving and enjoying themselves as other people. So you can see that diversity is something you can see visibly. A lot of corporations try to do that, but they really don't incorporate people.
I think for me, I always envision if everybody in the world was blind, we would all realize that every single one of us, at the very core of our being, we all want to be loved. We all want to love. We all need a roof over our heads. We all need health care. We all fundamentally, as human beings, want exactly the same thing. So perhaps it would be a better world if we were all born blind, because that initial view of someone is where we form instant opinions without actually looking deeper. And I think that's a shame.
I just love the expression you use to articulate it, that if you are blind, you don't see those things. And I have a similar thing I use in what I termed as belief formation process, where every one of us has a family, giving birth to father, mother, or whomever it is. But the bottom line is that you get to know those people. And if you're a little kid and your grandmother comes and hugs you and does something that nobody else does, it makes you to love them more. And it makes you to create this perspective that this is a wonderful person. If we go to Erickson theory, each theories of human development, all those things are laid out there. Now, in a community where you live, you learn from them. If you are born in an environment where they discuss about other people in a disgusting way, guess what? That's what you're gonna learn. And the way you learn about those people and see those people, guess what? That's how you're gonna treat them like disgusting. So sometimes when I say that we are creating things the way it is. Say, for instance, if you take what is happening in Gaza today, it breaks my heart when I see little kids, 2 years, 1 year old. They see bricks falling on them and they are dying. The question then becomes, at least from my perspective, when these people, these youngsters grow, they're going to be telling the same story these Jewish people who are now older people are telling. The pain, the anguish that they've gone through during their childhood. Things may be happening. Some adults may not know that these kids are seeing everything, perhaps more than adults could see. And those things, if you culture them, as I mentioned, in psychology, there's something we call schema theory. Schema theory is, let me illustrate by using an organization. In any organization, you can see files, account receivable, employee files. You can see accounts payable. You can see the corporate executive files, so on and so forth. Similarly, in human engagement, when you engage with people, the experiences you have, varied experiences, come in a filing system. And those filing systems are separated, the good, the bad, and all. And however you learn based on your filing system, you're going to use it to do something. You cannot divorce those filing system or ingrained perspective you've developed when you are dealing with people you had been taught to hate or people you had taught to love. And that's why most of my workshops, I tell people, look, don't tell me that you didn't teach your child this, because that's a lie. Either directly or indirectly, you made your child to behave the way it is. And you can compare this with using the guy that went to South Carolina and killed nine people, who dubbed himself as a racist, that he hated black people. Killed how many? 9 innocent people who were inviting him to come and pray with, of all places, at the church. I don't know what kind of God the guy would in for. Could you imagine if that guy who went and killed the 9 people had the opportunity to unlearn what he had been taught by having opportunity to meet people who are different, those people that had been castigated in the eyes of the community or the people that related to him? I don't think he would be doing what he had done. That's why I believe in the power of engagement, the power of exploring ideas, getting to know one another. Let everybody explain him or herself, because by so doing, we develop a new perspective rather than the garbage perspective that people may have been subjected to while they're growing up.
It's interesting. Looking at the political situation of the world today, human beings have very short memories. Yes, we are taught, and what we are taught from the time we are a child is something that sticks with us. But when it comes to history, we see the world trying to wipe that history. We want the monuments gone. There have been genocides perpetrated around the world many times throughout history, but we keep wiping that clean. And I think that's a mistake, because If we pretend it didn't happen, if we don't teach about what happened, if we don't understand what happened in those situations, we are going to repeat. And that is exactly what we are seeing on the world stage today. We are seeing a repetition of genocides long past and genocides to come, and hatred long past and hatred to come. We need to keep those reminders so that if our forefathers or our parents or whoever is responsible for teaching us doesn't want to teach us the right thing, at least if we question what we see with our own eyes and what we experience with our own eyes, we can find the answers that should be there, regardless of whether someone's teaching it to us or not.
You are absolutely correct. What you said echoed the statement made by my 5th grade teacher. I recall very vividly, my 5th grade teacher came into the class and said, "Guess what we're going to learn today?" He said, "We're going to learn history." And they proceeded to say, "What is history?" The shortest definition of history I've ever had. Very concise. He said, "History is the study of past events." He proceeded with the second question. Why do we learn history? He said, "We learn history to avoid repetition of terrible things that had happened before. Furthermore, we learn history to figure out what were the great things humans had done. How can we replicate?" Now you see some people say, "Oh, you can't teach history. Oh, books are banned, all kinds of things." I don't understand. If you don't teach people real truth, you expect them to change? No, it's not going to happen. I'm perplexed when I read things indicating that some people are changing their history or that certain books are not. Somebody like Toni Morrison's book, A Woman That the World Adores. Can you believe that they banned her book, among others? And those people banning books, perhaps they don't even know the importance of history or power of history. You don't compensate horrible things with horrible things. That's what makes us different. If you come to a state where they have state rights, some people hide under state rights to do all kinds of harms to people. They do it legislatively, like preventing people from voting, all those type of terrible things human beings do. It's perplexing. But I wonder, why do people do that?
Hey, you know what? I think too, though, that this goes back centuries. Even to this very day, history has been written by the European community about how North America was found. It wasn't found. There were indigenous people living in North America. It was their territory. They had their lives. They had their tribes. They had their cultural. And for some reason, we still teach how the great Europe community came into North America and liberated it and made it so much better. No, that was another genocide. The great European people went into North America and literally raped and pillaged their way across the landscape, taking all of the natural resources and shuffling all of the indigenous people there onto small portions of land and calling them reservation. But we don't get that true story. I think we need to learn about history, the factual history, not that shiny, pretty version of history that makes people heroes, but the actual history of the genocides that have occurred over time, of the theft of natural resources, land. There's so much that we have tried to gloss over. And therefore, we are doomed, I would say, to continue to repeat those mistakes until we become truly honest about the atrocities of the past, so that when we go into the future, those atrocities will not be recommitted.
You really had pointed out very well. We can't whitewash our history. No, we can't. See, if you come to the States now, there are a number of states that have advanced policies to say you cannot teach history this way, you cannot teach history this way. First, it started with critical race theory. Critical race theory was a legal concept that we are used to look into all kinds of things, including intersectionality, that somebody may be discriminated against on basis of race. And that's another person may be discriminated in a combination of other variables, like if you discriminate against people on basis of gender. Now, within that gender context, you have people who are of European origin. You have people who are African American origin. You have Asian origin. You have all those types of things. The poverty that these people that are germane to these people will always come to fruition. Now, when you are making that judgment, you don't look at this is the level of education somebody has. This is economic level of what somebody is. This are the consequences of all these variations. And people paint it as if it's one thing. And they used it to say, you can't teach history. As I said, banning books. You can't do it accurately because some people argue that it's gonna hurt the feelings of white students. It's ridiculous. But again, it's always the power for people making decisions. And sometimes, quite frankly, I think that some people that make decisions are so ignorant that they should not be making decisions. But unfortunately, that's just my view. And I think to some extent, it's correct.
I agree with you. Again, this is whitewashing history, and we're never going to learn unless we stop it and we assign the responsibility. I won't say blame. We assign the responsibility to the actual people that were responsible for it and move on from there. But no one's doing that, and they don't want to, because I think it sheds them in such a pure light that they would rather ignore it than ever confront the atrocities that they've committed in the past.
I think what you are saying is clearly a good reflection of history. Lay the truth wherever they fall. Let it lay it out. It's better we follow the truth than lying about things and covering up things here. And going back to what may be characterized by some as westward movement in the United States was when the Native Americans were being pursued and being killed, being all kinds of terrible things. And then people may have some sort of exuberance when they're talking about it, because they don't really know the true history. And then you go to sometimes we say when we are celebrating Christopher Columbus because he discovered America. I used to tell my students, you know what? I want you guys to go to the dictionary and let's check if the word discovery means anything to us and whether it fits into how we use it. So there's so much that could be learned. And again, as you said, it's not to distribute retribution, but it's to follow the truth and therefore change for a better world where we can treat one another with equality. Now, when you come to the United States, every month you hear about unemployment rate, about people in this country. Then when you look at the unemployment rate, you find out that this population of Black people are represented in unemployment level. It doesn't matter whether they have PhD, master's degree, first degree, high school or not school at all. Any parameter you look at it, you find out that people of equal level of education are better positioned, are hired, are less unemployed. Now you look at women, childbearing, this proportion of Black women dying in childbearing is as a result of all those things. There are some doctors that may be trained. That's why sometimes when people say they don't need diversity, I'm like, these people don't get it.
I think diversity and inequality do come together in the fact that we want to live in a world where justice is equal, where law is equal, where healthcare is equal, where the ability to get paid is equal. But unfortunately, we are far from that. And I think back in 2017, we started seeing things change a bit. Things were starting to become more equal. People were becoming more aware. There was a lot of world events that precipitated that for sure. And unfortunately, in the last few years, those numbers have started to go backwards again. And I'm not sure why that is. I had great hopes for our population after COVID when we saw at least 3 months of no gun violence. We saw 3 months of no wars. We saw 3 months of people applauding healthcare workers and coming together as a community to help each other out. And then we were all let free again. And look where we are now.
Unfortunately, it's not changing as fast as we should want it to change.
I think the whole point behind this podcast that you and I are coming together to do is to question the human experience, to give answers, to learn, to move forward, and hopefully to create some understanding and eventually possibly a better world.
I concur completely. In fact, there's a small program I developed which stems from cultural responsive teaching. This is where we can teachers who go to classroom first day, they determine who is going to do well and who is not going to do well. And usually because of ingrained misconception they have about some minorities. And those minorities are the one that they will label the first day they cannot do well. Now, the thing I created is something that looks into belief formation. How do we form our belief system? Taking people into the processes and how we developed our belief system. I'll take them where you can look at reflecting on the work Leon Festinger, former Stanford professor of psychology, who came up with the idea of cognitive dissonance. You have to build, you have to take these people who had been acculturated to hate without having any validity for it and share with them the reality. Just as I mentioned in Derek Black. And when they see the real thing, they're going to begin to think, do I believe my naked eyes or do I believe the garbage I had fed? By and large, they will embrace their naked eyes. And by so doing, they will embrace reality instead of garbage, wanted to be defining certain people. I think as we move forward, there will be a lot. And hopefully, we're not going to be asking people to buy our ideas, but for them to see reality. Because reality has a way to show up and then think about their position. Sometimes if you see people who had done terrible things to other people, they apologize for it. And that's good. Then they move forward. But when you are arrogant and be doing those things, somersaulting in ignorance and hoping that things will change for better, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I want to say thank you to our audience for tuning in, and please do come back again next week for another episode. This has been the very first episode of Diversity. My name is Rhea Rao.
I encourage everyone to join. This is a learning process which will help us to build a better world. My name is Dr. Nwoye.
We'll see you again next time.